This year, experience the NHL playoffs your way. Want to watch a single? Do or die Game 7, a full week of heavy-hitting back-and-forth series. Then check out Sling's 1, 3, and 7-day passes. Watch the Chase for the Cup on ESPN and TNT, starting as low as $4.99. No long-term contracts or overpaying. Just live hockey at home or when you want it. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
To hear one of the greats say that about me, like, man, that's special. That's why you do it, because you want respect from your peers, and Kawhi he's not just no ordinary peer. Again, he's one of the greats, and so to hear him say that about me, that guy took the Defensive Player of the Year award away from me. Like, he's a man of few words, but when he speaks, it's loud, because he doesn't speak much, and I don't think there's a player in the NBA that does not respect Kawhi Leonard.
That's Draymond Green reacting to praise from Kawhi Leonard. Yes, PK, the guys who are now in the middle of the league and the guys who are playing in the play-in games are now talking about being the greats. It's almost in the past tense now, a new generation taking over in the NBA. But Draymond Green will probably go right into the Hall of Fame in the broadcast booth when he's done.
Ooh, you think Draymond Green goes in the Hall of Fame, huh?
Yeah, I think he's done enough winning. He's recognized as a great defensive player. I would expect he gets in.
Okay.
NBA play-in tournament wraps up tonight. Charlotte is at Orlando. The winner is the 8th seed in the East and plays Detroit. That game tips off at 5:30. The Warriors play the Suns in Phoenix at 8 o'clock. Winner is 8th in the West and will take on Oklahoma City. Both those games on Prime Video. Lakers star Luka Doncic and Pistons star Cade Cunningham will be eligible for end-of-season awards after the NBA and the Players Association agreed Thursday that both will be allowed to bypass the 65-game threshold for eligibility requirements. There is a clause in the collective bargaining agreement that says extraordinary circumstances they can petition. Doncic appealed on traveling to see his child born and Cunningham for the collapsed lung. PK, this reminds me of players going to the NCAA for a 6th year of eligibility.
Why?
We got rules, but wait a minute. Mine was a little different. Give me a break.
Yeah, did Doncic miss 15 games or whatever it is? What's 82 minus 65? More than
17.
15 there.
He reached 64 games is what he's sitting at.
Oh, yeah, but what about all those other games that he missed? It's not about that one. How long was he gone for the birth of his child?
2 games.
2 games? Okay, well, then you got all these other games that he missed. I mean, come on. Either we're going to have rules. The box is open, and Pandora has been cut loose, and it's going to run amok in the NBA.
That's a fact. I totally agree, man. This is going to be like, well, he hurt his knee 3 times, so we gave him a 7th year.
Yeah, but that's
former
a whole
NBA
year.
player and assistant coach Damon Jones expected to become the first person. Yeah. Damon Jones expected to become the first person to plead guilty in a gambling sweep that led to the arrest of more than 30 people, including reputed mobsters and other basketball figures. His change of plea hearing scheduled for April 28th, after which he'll be sentenced. And presumably, with that plea, he might end up testifying against somebody. Let's see where that goes.
Juicy. Mobsters. Who's
DJ
play
and
Damon
PK.
Jones in the movie?
In the movie, right?
Hashtag college basketball.
Former Utah player Keanu Dawes and Terrence Brown Jr. have landed. Keanu Dawes, that news was breaking late in our show yesterday. He's going to Kansas. Terrence Brown Jr. is going to North Carolina. Dawes was being pursued by BYU, among other programs, but he is going to be a Jayhawk.
This is impressive for guys who are on 2 losing teams. One goes to Carolina, or one losing team. One goes to Carolina, and the other goes to Kansas. Wow, they had some talent there.
Apparently, right?
And we'll see what they do in their new roles and their new teams.
Yeah. How big are those roles? We'll see.
Right.
All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
We're less than a week away from the NFL draft now, and the Chiefs general manager, Brett Veach, said he expects an active first round, multiple trades. Quote, it should be an entertaining night. There'll probably be a lot of trades. That's what a draft like this, when you don't have 2 or 3 top quarterbacks or a Will Anderson or Myles Garrett, it lends itself to open up a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. There's not this huge gap and huge fall off.
Yeah, we shall see. That fans love that stuff, though.
Yep. Prepare for some wheeling and dealing, people moving up, people moving down, people moving in, people moving out. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
A former Alabama football player is facing charges of wire fraud and identity theft after he allegedly used wigs and fake driver's licenses to impersonate NFL players for the purpose of securing nearly $20 million in loans. Prosecutors allege that Luther Davis pretended to be 3 different players from May of 23 until October of 24 to secure loans from multiple lending agencies. He impersonated Michael Penix Jr., the Falcons quarterback, tight end David Njoku from the Browns, and defensive back Xavier McKinney from the Packers.
Well, I guess under this circumstance, there's advantages in being as small as Britton Covey is.
There you go. Going to be hard to impersonate him, huh?
Yeah.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Beginning in 2027, college football could have an earlier start to the season. The NCAA's Football Oversight Committee recommended a standard start before Labor Day weekend. What has previously been referred to as Week 0 will now become the opening week. That would give them 14 weeks, and the teams could have 2 bye games and allow some more scheduling flexibility for the college football playoff expansion and associated games. And PK, what I heard here, even though I didn't read it, is we're moving back a week because we think the NFL is going to move back a week and seize Labor Day weekend. So we're going to start a week earlier. I think both those things are going to happen. The football season is going to creep back towards summer for both the college and the pro, I expect.
Oh, I thought I'm confused on that because I thought the Utes always played on the Thursday to get away from Labor Day weekend, which meant they were already playing Labor Day weekend. So I'm not sure what's going on here.
They can play a Thursday earlier.
So most teams play
now.
Labor Day weekend. Now they're going to play the Saturday before that. So
Oh,
the Utes
okay,
could move back
that's
even
it.
5 more days, and everybody else could move back 7.
So it's not before Labor. It's before Labor Day, but instead of 3 days or 2 days before the weekend, it's 9 days before the weekend.
Yeah, it's essentially a full week ahead of time. You actually can play on that Thursday before that. So we're talking late August is when this is going to get going.
Fine.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
There's a rocket. Mike Trout blasts off for the Bronx one more time.
Oh, look how far that went. 446 feet, Trout.
Swinging a line drive, base hit into right. Caglione up for the ball. Green racing around third. Third to the plate. Not in time. At first line. Tigers win. Oh, man.
Highlights from around Major League Baseball. The Power Show continued at Yankee Stadium. Aaron Judge went deep again. Mike Trout went deep again. Angels get the win 11-4. So for the 4-game series, they split it 2-2. And Judge hits 4 homers in the 4 games, and Trout hits 5 homers in the 4 games. Man, couple of celebrities putting on the show on the biggest stage, PK, just day after day. They just able to sustain the excellence.
I didn't see the game live, but I saw the highlights, obviously, and that Trout bomb. I mean, my goodness gracious. That was so far out there, as the announcer said. Did you see how far that went? And I think he set the record for most home runs of a visiting team against the Yankees in a series.
Yep.
I'm honoring him with my Angels hat today. At 5 in the series, 7 total. He's a Hall of Famer, that's for sure. And balls were flying like crazy at the Yankee Stadium, the current version of Yankee Stadium across the street from the other one.
Parker Messick, rookie left-hander for Cleveland, had a no-hitter through 8 innings. First pitch in the 9th, though, he gave up the old CNI single. They had the second baseman over towards the bag, and it went through the hole there between first and second. So Cleveland still has had a no-hitter in 45 years, And Messick settles with a 2-hitter, and they beat the Orioles 4-2. Gave them a thrill, but couldn't quite seal the deal there in the ninth.
Yeah, well, we'll see if this kid ends up being anything, because there's been a bunch of guys they've never heard of occasionally get a no-hitter. Now he's just getting started, and that was the first time I heard of him. So we'll follow him in the coming years and see if there's something there.
Remember when it was incredible when baseball teams had $100 million payrolls, and then 2, and then 3, and multiple teams at 3, and now the Dodgers have reset the spending record. $515 million in payroll and luxury tax last season en route to that second straight World Series. And that 515 record probably falls again this year. But $345 for the salaries, and then another $169 million in luxury taxes. So it paid off for them with another World Series.
Unless they're going to change the rules, it's hard for me to criticize them doing it. And if they want to see what happens here next winter when they start and so forth, I think obviously they're going to try to get the salary cap going on and all that. We'll see what difference that makes, if it can actually happen, if there's a lockout and all that stuff. I assume there will be. But you're playing by the rules as presently constituted. And do the Dodgers have an obligation to worry about the fill-in-the-blank team, the Miami Marlins, or do they have an obligation to the Dodgers to beat the snot out of everybody? Now, they have won the World Series twice, and this last one literally was by an inch or two, multiple times. So you don't know if that's going to be the difference maker, because baseball's funky that way. But I suppose I would like to see a salary cap, but I have to see the particulars that go on the salary cap, because I think it stinks for the NBA that you draft a guy, you develop a guy, and your team is too good, and so then you got to let that guy go because somebody in New York stated a rule that dictates you can't do this or that.
Right.
I have a problem with that because you've invested someone, and it could be several years. And if in Oklahoma City may be facing that, and you've talked about how the Jazz are facing that, and or could be facing that. We'll see how it goes, and that prevents you from trying to win. And we criticize teams for trying to lose, and now we're forcing teams, preventing them trying to win. Where's the balance there? I don't have the answer. I don't have the answer to anything for that matter, but I'm just throwing that stuff out there.
Yeah, nobody has the answer, and that's why they're worried about a labor stoppage next year, because no one can agree on the answer. There's all these factors. Here's one story, right? The Dodgers, 515, and the old record was the Mets, who had spent a year before, spent I think it was $440 million or something like that on their salaries and luxury tax. So that's the owner's argument. But sitting there watching the last few innings of that Padre-Mariner game, they went to a commercial break, and I'm clicking around. I see a story about the sale of the Padres, so obviously I click on that, and they were valued at $3.1 million by Forbes and somebody else who does an evaluation of them. But there were two evaluations
million?
there at 3.1
millions, but a
3.1 billion, right? Sorry, 3.1 billion. But the bidding apparently has gone to 3.5. And one story, when I started looking at multiple stories, was speculating it was getting closer to 4. And the old record is for the Mets, and it's like $2.5 billion. And in the story, they went into how, well, this is just going to be the argument for the Players Association. Yeah, you're spending more money, but you're making more money and you're worth more money. The only time you sell the teams is literally when somebody dies. The Padre owner passed away 2 years ago, and the Padres are now going to go for more than the Mets went for a few years ago. So the argument is that, well, the value of everything is skyrocketing. Why shouldn't salaries skyrocket right along with it? And that's actually a pretty good argument. It makes me wonder how much these guys are going to dig in.
Yeah.
But
I think with or without a cap, the salaries are going to skyrocket. And that's not real money, the value of your franchise. Right? That's like, I own a $1 million house, and then until I sell it, whoop-de-doo, I don't have a penny for it. So I think that's two different things. That's not real money in your pocket, whereas salaries is real money in your pocket. The assessed valuation of something is not actual money until it's cashed in, and who knows when that's going to be. And we understand that, and there's going to be a time that the Minnesota Twins are going to sell, and they're going to be more valued than the Padres are right now. That's sort of inflation. So I'm not sure I really buy that argument.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
RSL's back in action. Haven't played in 2 weeks, but they welcome San Diego to America First Field Saturday night. RSL lost their opener, but unbeaten since then. First kick, 7:30. Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach, is going to join us later today. I understand there's more players returning to health. They might be getting Andre Yedlin back. We'll talk with Pablo about that coming up at 9 o'clock. And you can listen to the game Saturday night, 6:30 with the pre-match show, and then first kick at 7:30 here on The Zone.
You're going to be on the call?
PK. What?
You're going to be on the call?
I will be.
Sweet.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
It's different, but Veg was at the Olympic not long ago. Was at the World Championship not long ago. Kool-Aid won a gold medal for his country at the last World Championship. Gunnar won a bunch of gold medals, overtime goals, and so on and so forth for his Memorial Cup and so on. They've been in a really high-stake game. But having that said, now it will be the first time all together.
There's the head coach, Andre Tourny, answering the inevitable questions. How are the Mammoth going to do? They don't have playoff experience, and he points out in international play they have been in big games and under pressure representing their various countries. So obviously they're hoping that translates, even though, as he points out, they haven't done this together. But they will Sunday night at 8 o'clock in Las Vegas. Golden Knights and the Mammoth, T-Mobile Arena. Game 1 Sunday at 8. Game 2 is Tuesday, and then the Delta Center gets the playoff magic Friday night, Game 3.
Excited.
Yep.
The way I look at it is, okay, you don't have this together, but at the same time, you don't have a bunch of losing in the playoffs together either. So you get the chance to write the script, and it starts, as you say, Sunday night in Vegas. And what are they going to do? Nobody cares that they played and lost last night. That game didn't count, really. It didn't matter. And so now this is a clean slate for this franchise in its second season in Utah. You got a bunch of new players together. They don't have the experience, but what does that mean? Oh, maybe they don't know any better. You know, you can spin that as much as you want, and we all get to see it unfold.
They really treated last night's game like a scrimmage, just trying to stay sharp. Dylan Gunther didn't play, and Veggie got pulled after 2 periods, so the backup Ansek could get the 3rd period, and they ended up losing 5-3 to the Blues. There was an empty netter late, but yeah, there you go. Didn't really matter. They're locked into that Vegas series. So Friday the 24th, Monday the 27th, games 3 and 4 in the Delta Center. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. That's what's trending. It's brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up, David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, will be here at 8:30. Pablo Mastroeni, RSL head coach, at 9. And Danny Webster at 9:30 covers the Vegas Golden Knights. He's an NHL writer for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. And we'll talk to him about that playoff series with the Knights, the Golden Knights, and the Mammoth. Coming up next, it's the question of the day. Stay with us.
Just a bunch of guys sitting around and talking sports. This is Scotty G and Friends.
Logan Cooley, 2 years ago, is about the time things really started to break that this organization was going to move from Phoenix to Salt Lake City. And now 2 years later, you're in the playoffs. Just what does that feeling feel like for you as a player, knowing that you're going to be playing postseason hockey?
It's awesome. I mean, I think as a little kid, you dream about eventually one day winning the Stanley Cup, and just the experience we're going to gain from being in the playoffs. You know, there's some guys that on our team. I'm one of them that haven't even experienced playoff hockey. And, you know, you watch on TV, just the excitement in the buildings, how intense the hockey is. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be unbelievable. And I'm sure the fans are going to have the Delta Center rocking. And we can't honestly wait to, you know, get started once playoffs start. You know, it's going to be the most fun hockey that, you know, I think I'm going to be a part of.
Catch Scotty G and Friends weekdays from noon to 3 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This year, experience the NHL playoffs your way. Want to watch a single, do or die Game 7, a full week of heavy-hitting back-and-forth series? Then check out Sling's 1, 3, and 7-day passes. Watch the chase for the cup on ESPN and TNT, starting as low as $4.99. No long-term contracts or overpaying. Just live hockey at home or when you want it. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are brought to you in part by Beehive Meals. The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at kslsports.com/contest. And listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. Question of the morning, Brian Santiago. BYU Athletic Director says the Cougars will never have a private equity firm be part of its sports programs. Why so adamant? We have a lot of answers that run along the lines of, as Steven says, because they already have private equity. Mark, because there's no need. Jenna, they're literally owned by a private equity firm. Pockets are deep. They are full of cash. They don't need to let somebody else in and help finance them. As John says, they are not funded by the state. So there it is, PK. All is well. Bank accounts are full. NIL money is paid. No need. Just no need.
Okay, that assumes then if there was a need that they would do it. Is that what Santiago would have said if all those things, I mean, they have the donors, and I assume owned is referencing the Latter-day Saint Church, and you know, we've read reports about them and the I guess billions or millions that they have stock. I don't really care how much money they have and do whatever they want. But you know, we've heard about that. So I guess that's the reference there. To what degree is that is the sponsoring institution giving the university money for its athletic program? I thought that they go to great lengths to tell us money isn't being used, or at least tithing money isn't being used. I don't know if general fund money, I don't know how the funds work and any of that. And so what does that mean? If they didn't have all that, would they do it? Is Santiago saying we have no need, or is he saying that we don't believe a private equity thing is the way to go? Or is he saying both?
I don't know. I haven't heard that teased all the way out. I would think that off the top, they don't need it. They have enough billionaire boosters and entrepreneurs, and we know the companies. We've heard of that. So it just sounds like they're good to go. Now, good to go, that, you know, there's degrees to that. And maybe if this thing keeps accelerating, maybe we'll find out to what degree. You know, maybe you have money to compete at one level, but not money to compete at another level. And how badly do you want to get to that next level? And what are you willing to do? And I think really the word in this case, what would you be willing to compromise? You know, because I think the thought is with private equity, well, you are giving up some degree of control. Now, I think from one private equity firm to another, that stuff might work a little differently, but you'd definitely be giving up some level of control. So I don't think you do it unless you have to. And, you know, if they weren't winning as much and they were short on money and they wanted more, you know, where is the line? At what point do you compromise? Even if he said that now, I think that's one of those things, we've talked about this in life. You can think of, you know what you're going to do in a year or two or 5 or whatever. But we're old enough to have gone through that enough times that we realize, yeah, well, when you get there a year or 2 or 5 later, things look different. And guess what? I'm not going to do what I thought I was going to do 2 or 5 years ago. So I don't know what he would say to that, and I don't know if they would stick to it when they got to that point. Everything in college sports is changing so fast right now. I just think right now they have no interest in it because right now they got billionaire boosters, and they've got at least what they think they need right now, and then, you know, we'll see going forward where things go.
Well, I can tell you that they thought they were underfunded compared to Texas Tech, and Texas Tech wallowed them both times last season. So if you're comfortable at that level, having a very nice season, but when you play the top dog, you get creamed both times, once on the road, once at a neutral field. And so are they comfortable with that? Because that's the reality. And speaking to BYU coaches, they outlined some of the costs and the defensive line. The front seven that Texas Tech was able to put out there, they said, was more than the entire defense, if not the entire team. So do they have enough? Enough for what? I mean,
right.
That remains to be seen. What is enough for?
Yeah. And that's why I say 1 or 2 or 5 years, because right now it doesn't feel like, I don't think any of us have heard, like the finance, I mean, everything's going up, so the finance have gone up, but it doesn't sound like it's accelerated, right? And another year or two of losing to Texas Tech twice a year, again, that's one of those things in a couple of years people might feel differently. If you got a 6-game losing streak over 3 years and you keep bumping up against the same team in the conference title game, maybe people will need to plunk down or want to plunk down more money. And, 5 years out, we could have massive realignment. If the Big Ten decides to do some big 32-team national league and go all in and just say, forget the NCAA, we're just going to run our own thing and be our own thing and be the beast. If you have a chance to get into that, you might need to come up with a lot of money real quickly, and maybe that's a different scenario and you get a different answer. Or maybe billionaires just pony up. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I don't think that they will lose 6 times in the next 3 years because they're going to play Texas Tech every year, but it's already there. You lost to them in large part because they have the most money. Their softball team is ranked number 1 because they have the most money. Go look at the history. Just put Google seasons results by Texas Tech's softball team, and you can see it. You can just see how they were a decent program, but not at the level of an Oklahoma or a Texas until last year. And the record that they posted, the numbers will just jump out at you. And they had never won a Big 12 title ever. Now, sure, they had Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska back in former versions of the Big 12. I understand all that. But they hadn't gotten done. And they've had decent programs for a time. But they were sort of, a couple games, 2-3 games above 500, what have you. And then they go and do what they do. So that record last year will jump out at you. And then they lose. Oregon creams them in the playoff. And their number 1 booster says, well, we're not going to back off. In fact, I'm going to double down. So sure, BYU has money to compete if that's what you're satisfied with, but do you have enough money to win all the way, right? Because whatever level you are, you want more. Now, if you get to the top level, you want to continue, right? The athletic program's desire is not to go back. It is to continue or maintain or get to that level, increase it. So I don't know that I can sit here and say they have enough money, because it's enough money for what? To field a good team? Yeah. Is that good enough? Now, for me personally, yes, that is good enough. If I were a BYU fan and my team won 10, 11, 12 games virtually every year, I would be fine with it, 100%. And they lose and they don't ever win the national title, I would be fine with it. That I would have a lot of good times. To me, it's good times along the way rather than the final result, because the final result most often is going to be disappointing. Even Ohio State, right? Last year was great. This year, not so much. They lost the Big 12 title or Big 10 title game and then don't win it all in the playoff. So for them, that's a downer. For me, they had another banner season. So it depends on what you're looking for. What is acceptable for you? And then they have to decide, because I'm not sure that they have enough money to compete at the highest level. And everybody talks about, we just played Canales. Yeah, we're going to be great at both ends, and we're going to be aggressive. And you fill in the blank for every new coach across the country, man, woman, doesn't matter which sport. And they basically say the same thing on press conference hiring day, right? It doesn't vary that much. And Jared Calhoun, well, we got a 9 seed, so that's why I went to Cincinnati. I'm not allowed. I can say BS, but I can't say what that word is on the radio. Because if they had a 7 seed, that means you were going to stay?
Yeah.
No. You weren't going to stay. But you want to BS us during the press conference. So, wow, we got that 9 seed, so we're out the door. Okay, I think Iowa got a 9 seed in advance. So you're just making stuff up. You're saying stuff to say it, to make yourself look good. Do they have enough money to win at a decent level? Yes. Do they have enough money to win at the most level, highest level? Don't think so. And at least not yet.
So does he have plans for that down the line? I mean, Brian Santiago, you've seen, and granted, it's probably a younger, feistier version of Santiago, but the fire still burns. The bonfire may not be 20 feet tall, but You could still warm yourself around the campfire that is his personality. I wonder what he wants. And I wonder what he's, how hard he's willing to push to get there, and how many conversations there are with how many billionaire donors to get whatever money they need. Because you're right, that Texas Tech defense, they put Bailey on one side and they put what's his face on the other side, and I'm blanking on his name. And that was ferocious. And you don't just get that. Well, you don't get it anywhere, but you certainly don't get it at Texas Tech without paying for it. I mean, you probably don't get it at Ohio State without paying for it either. So it's going to take money to compete. I mean, there are people that quote about, you will not outbid us. Where do they set the goal? And then are they willing to pay to get there? And it sounds like there's no donor fatigue, at least in one donor, there's no donor fatigue. Now, as that quote gets older, maybe there will be. Maybe the checks get bigger and everybody else's checks are getting bigger too. And, you just keep chasing something you don't quite get to. Maybe they will have donor fatigue down the line. But it doesn't sound like it now, and I think that's why – one of the reasons why Brian says that. And maybe it's just a case of, hey, it is a private school and the church leadership has no interest in doing that, so either raise the money privately or content yourself with what you have. Maybe that is it. Maybe there is an absolute wall that, can't be breached there. But if this turns out to be something more normal in college athletics, could it change over time? I mean, we've seen other changes we didn't really expect. At that school, at another school, in conferences. We didn't expect Pac-12 to go away. Here we are. I mean, he says it and he believes it when he says it today, but what are circumstances going to be like in 5 or 10 years?
I think the name you were thinking of, Jacob Rodriguez, is the other guy.
Yes.
From my experience of knowing Brian in his 20s versus now in his 50s, not much has changed. He just has to. I mean, he's evolved and learned to become a better human being. I've got no problem saying that.
But he's still super competitive.
Right. I think what he's doing is he's learning how to channel that competitiveness in the manner that Tom Homo did. Tom Homo, during his reign, at no point ever embarrassed the university with his competitiveness overflowing. And we see sometimes, a lot of times, that happens with people in the environment. I mean, we just saw it with Ariema.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
I was watching that thing. I was watching that game with my wife, and he goes and has the little dust up with Coach Staley there of South Carolina. And I'm telling her, oh, he's going to come out and apologize tomorrow. Okay, he did, and they made peace, and which I thought, it'll probably take a couple of days, and then everything will go back to normal. They're in a competitive environment. He was mad and furious and blah blah blah. Those things happen. I don't think anything less of Gino Auriemma today than I did versus that statement and Dawn Staley say, I'm going to kick his you-know-what. Yeah, she's in the moment. And I'd probably do the same thing. And so, but at BYU, you can't be in that moment. And I think Brian has learned how to channel that competitiveness in the way that Tom Homo did, so he's not embarrassing the university. And then he retires and is going to be leaving here in a few weeks to go back to the Bay Area as a Latter-day Saint mission president. Tom Homo has as much fire as anybody. He's just learned how to channel it. Brian Santiago is wired slightly different, so he's had to learn it, and he's in the process of learning it, and I think he's doing a really good job at learning it, right? But in his core, as you say, he wants to win. So they've got to keep pushing the envelope, because when it comes to winning, they want to win as much as the next guy, whoever the next guy is, whether it's Texas Tech, Indiana, Ohio State, LSU, whatever it might be. They want to do that, but they got to make sure that there's certain criteria that they can hold to, and they can't go overboard. I mean, you look at the Lane Kiffin posting pictures of himself in bathing suits with gorgeous women. That's not going to fly if Kalani Sitake did that. You know what I mean? So those are the different standards. You just can't do that. Lane Kiffin can get away with it because he's kind of an oddball and he's at a public university and they don't have the image. You see it. You see in the Latter-day Saint authorities when they show up to games, they're in suits all the time, right? Yeah. So they have this image, and that's fine. That's their choice. They can do whatever they want. At BYU, you got to do things a certain way. But when it comes to winning, you got to have the cash. That's just a fact now. And it probably was always a fact, but it's obviously far more pronounced now than ever. And to what level do they want to go? And this private equity thing, it doesn't seem like they want to have any connection to that, because then you start inviting influence. And that's where I wanted to go a little bit with the discussion. The word influence, I don't understand how a private equity firm works. I'm a janitor's son, man. And as a high schooler, I was embarrassed by that because I was an idiot. Now I can't be more proud of my father that that's what he did. He dropped out of high school to help his family, and that was the situation. And he raised kids and said, go get an education, and we did. And look at us now. Not that I'm anything special, but at least I got that, and I'm living comfortably. So I'm grateful for his desire to impart that wisdom to me and do what he did and made those sacrifices, right? So I don't have any involvement with private equity, and I don't come from money whatsoever. So I can't speak to that, but I know they have influence. And now, and it's related to the U of U, because you said they give up you said if you invite a private equity in, you're going to give up control, which is some control, which is the same word as influence. At the same time, these donors, they want to have influence, even if they're not private equity firms. Maybe they're individual and it's not written down in a contract, but they want to have influence. They want to win. They want to buddy up to people to young men who are way younger than them, obviously. And then they want to have influence. So even if it's not an official private equity, if you accept money from boosters, at what cost do you have to pay when you get that money? That's a fascinating sort of gray area that I'm intrigued by.
It's a super gray area, and I think it's something we see across all of college sports. The people who have the money to give largely got the money because they've been in charge of something, and they are used to being, even if they inherited the money, they've been in charge of the money for however many years since they inherited it. And in a lot of cases, they probably earned it, started a company or whatever, and they're used to having a say, and they want to say, and they may not want the final say. Some might. Some boosters seem more heavy-handed than others. I mean, I think we can all spot one booster who's like literally running the Board of Regents now. That's probably the extreme example of having influence and being in charge. Look at Texas Tech. And their booster literally chairing the Board of Regents. All right. But there's always the old stories since before we even started doing this, PK, of the booster who wrote whatever size check they were writing, 50 years ago, who wanted to fire a coach because that coach wasn't winning, or wanted to hire a coach and was telling the AD and was bending the AD's ear that, hey, this is the next coach. This is who should get it. I mean, those stories are as old as time.
I told you a story that this is years ago, and I won't give up names and I won't give up schools, but it was spoken to me, and it was a while after the fact. It was probably at least 2 years after the fact of when the incident happened. But there was a particular game, and a quarterback did not play well, and there was a booster who came in the locker room and spoke to the coaches and said, we need to make a change. And when I was told that story after the fact, I said, you got to be kidding me. No. I mean, I knew he wasn't kidding me.
Right.
So it was sort of a rhetorical, you got to be kidding me. But that's the influence that they have. And this is going back several years, so don't bother guessing the names because you're probably not going to get it. But yeah, that was before all this, and way before the NIL. But that was a booster who was having money available to donate, and so they want something in return, and that something in return thought to that person that it was appropriate to go in after a tough loss and make that we need to change, make that claim to the professional who is doing this every day. Well, there you go. That's what you got.
Right. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Stay with us, more in a moment. It's DJ and PK. Got another question we need to get to here because David Locke is coming up. What do you want to talk about? We will get to that. That's on the way. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Oh, also, PK, got to update a recruiting story from earlier in the week. We were talking about Kyle Whittingham's impact in Utah, and somebody texted me immediately afterwards with an interesting thing. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
Okay.
This is JJ and Alex.
I got this.
Travis Yost, our guest, he covers the NHL for TSN.
For the Mammoth, I think they're the fourth best team in the West. I think that they would be a likely favorite against Anaheim. They could be or should be a favorite in a series against Vegas. If the Mammoth close the season as we expect, by goal differential, this is the best team that has ever been on the ice for either the Utah or Phoenix, Arizona Coyotes franchise by goal differential this season right here, right now. This team absolutely should not be thinking we made it to the playoffs. What an accomplishment. At this point, considering how good the Mammoth have been, and I mean that, they really should be thinking, how do we go in and win a round in the playoffs? And I think if you've got Anaheim on the ice, even if you're the road team in that series, that's a matchup the Mammoth should want, and it's one they should win.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This year, experience the NHL playoffs your way. Want to watch a single, do-or-die Game 7, a full week of heavy-hitting back-and-forth series? Then check out Sling's 1, 3, and 7-day passes. Watch the Chase for the Cup on ESPN and TNT, starting as low as $4.99. No long-term contracts or overpaying. Just live hockey at home or when you want it. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. PK, we were talking earlier this week about Kyle Whittingham because he flipped the West High quarterback. Lapati was supposed to go to Illinois, had a verbal commit to Illinois. But now he's committed to Michigan. What kind of impact is Kyle Whittingham going to have on recruiting here in Utah? And I was saying, well, everybody is recruiting here in Utah, and we're seeing kids scatter everywhere. And Utah and BYU are they're definitely holding some kids here, but we just went down the list, and it's Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma, everybody recruits in Utah, and everybody's pulling players out of here. So if Kyle takes a couple of players, now as soon as I said that, somebody sent me an Instagram post. There is a sophomore at Crimson Cliffs in St. George, Major Stokes, who is a major talent. Now, he's only a sophomore. He's class of 28. And he just committed to Michigan. Now, there's 2 years he could flip, who knows and all that. But and they presented it without comment. It was just kind of like, don't underestimate Kyle. He's going to be here in Utah. I found 2028 pretty interesting. That's 2 years, and I have no idea if this kid's a mission kid or not, but a redshirt, a mission kid, is like we talked about Kyle coaching for 5 years. It could be 5 years before this kid is playing, and do you make an impact right away at Michigan? So I guess the point is he's not going away, but I looked at the recruiting in this next recruiting class, and there are 5 kids committed to 5 different schools, and only one of them is in the state of Utah. And again, it's like West Virginia is here taking a kid. Oklahoma is here taking a kid. The whole country's recruiting here. I have a little problem wringing my hands over what Kyle's going to do, even though it's clear he is going to be active here. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
One point of order, Stokes has not committed to Michigan. He calls him one of his top options, though.
Oh, not officially a commit?
No, not according to what I just saw.
Okay.
Yeah. Sophomores commit is take that with a grain of salt anyway.
Yep.
Sure. DJ, I get your point. What's a few here? What's a few there? Go ask Arizona State and the U of A. What's a few here? What's a few there? Every year.
Well, I would say different than that. I would say that's an argument to a point, and you're right about that. I would just say it's going to be a few here and a few there, whether Kyle's at Michigan or not. I mean, Kyle at Michigan doesn't. There's a kid at Stansbury, Bronx Baker, is taking off for West Virginia. He's going across the country to play in the Big 12.
Sure.
At least when you go to Michigan, I mean, it is Michigan. They did just win a national title.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter where you go. It's not like, we feel better because he went to Michigan. That doesn't matter. He can go to Chico State, and if he blows up as an NFL talent, that's a loss. It is something that the Michigan issue is. It's not just, it's a couple to Michigan. No, it's a cumulative effect. Here are more top flight players leaving, and you talk about things being copycatish, so to speak. Well, sure, if they can have success here and there, well, and we always hear for women, oh, I watched the WNBA and that inspired me as a little girl, because if Marsha or Monica or Mary Lou can do it, I can do it too.
Yep.
Well, how many kids have gone to Michigan from Utah and flourished? Well, we know the Gentry kid went, well, he's from Colorado, but in LDS kids, it's sort of the same. And then he comes back, or went to BYU, didn't really come back, but so he's been able to play at BYU, and he was at Michigan. Well, if there's a bunch of kids over time, that opens up eyes for Utah kids thinking, yeah, I could go to Michigan because player XYZ went from Utah in there, so they can do it. I can do it. I think it's something that to be concerned about. And, well, in 5 years, Kai won't be there. Yeah, but Gennaro Guilford, Lewis Powell, Jason Beck, Jay Hill, those guys might be there. Ty Detmer's nephew, who was at Utah as the QB coach, is there. And so they have familiar ties to this place. You got to watch it, man. Because what seems to be just a little now, and I could speak to this and I've spoken to guys from the U of A and from ASU, and it got to the point where they basically don't even recruit them because they know they're not going to get them. And we'll see if these new guys here, one, Dillingham's going into his 4th year, and the other guy from San Jose, what's his name? He's at the U of A, he's going into his 3rd year now. And we'll see if that can change. Yeah, if that makes a difference, and can they keep guys home? Because then, too, the flip side is if you keep guys home and they have tons of success, we saw it. That U of U put up billboards throughout the valley saying "hometown hero," and they would have Zane Beatles, his pitcher there. And where did he go? Cottonwood or Hillcrest, and they'd have that up there. And so you see that, and you see these teams having success, and then they could say, hey, look, man, you stay here. Well, one time you were gone. I had an intense discussion about this with Trevor Riley when he was sitting in for you. This is several years back. And I think one of the BYU coaches, was it Cahoon at the time? I think he was making that argument when he was receivers coach. You stay here, and you have a network for the next 40 years. You really are a hometown hero. If you play in the pros, great, because then you'll make the big money, and you don't have to necessarily worry about it. But the Kyle Van Noys are few and far between of guys who play and they're in the NFL for 12, 13 years. The average lifespan is just a few years, and they don't even get the pension. But if you stay here and then you stay in the community and you're from here, then you have all these contacts and everything. And so that puts it into people's minds. Yeah, I can do that. So I take nothing for granted and say, well, it's just a couple of kids here and there, because here and there over 25 years, I can speak to the 2 Arizona schools, and so much of the homegrown talent has left.
I can say the same thing about San Diego State, so I don't underestimate kids leaving. My point is kids were already leaving when Kyle Whittingham was still at the U. You can go back and look in Iowa and Baylor and
right,
Cal,
but they weren't going to Michigan.
Right, but there are very few kids who can go to top 5 schools, and you lose a handful of kids to the top 5. But when you're losing against school 25, 35, and 45 routinely, which is already happening, that goes to the point about what's happened to ASU and San Diego State and Arizona. You can't even win against the 25th, 35th. I get Michigan's got built-in advantages, and now for however many years they got Kyle. But you're losing kids to Baylor. You're losing kids to Cal. It's a much bigger problem than a top 5 school with a coach with a local tie. The problem, which is well established over the last 5 years or whatever, I don't know, maybe it's more than that, but just going back a few years, it's already established with Kyle here.
I disagree with that, because I could find somebody to replace the kid at Cal, but you've just told me this kid's a top 5 talent, and replacing top 5 talent is way harder than replacing top 50 talent.
But they've been losing top 5 talent for 20 years. I mean, Haloti Ngata at Highland was going to Oregon, and then he's going to the NFL, and then he's going to the Hall of Fame.
And now it's going to be even more. So that exasperates the problem. It doesn't diminish it or keep it the same. Now I got to worry about Michigan, where before I didn't. I've always had to worry about Stanford and Oregon. Now I got to worry about Michigan. So I'm compounding my problem. But it's not staying the same. It's getting worse, potentially.
They'd already lost Lapati. He was going to Illinois. They didn't take him. Michigan didn't take him away from Utah and BYU. They took him away from Illinois. Illinois had already taken him away from Utah.
Yeah, but only one quarterback can play. So it's the other stuff. Quarterbacks, fine. And who knows? Quarterbacks are the most overrated, underrated position in sports when it comes to recruits. And even at the NFL level, we've seen that a million times.
And if he struggles with the transition to college quarterback, he's got the athletic ability and the size to play another position. And Kyle, we know Kyle well enough to know he looks at him and thinks he could be a really good quarterback, and I know he could be a really good safety too, and he probably could.
Then I'm even more worried about it. Yeah, exactly.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. David Locke joins us coming up. Questions for David Locke. We got to get to those. What are the Jazz going to do in this most intriguing of off seasons? Stay with us.
This year, experience the NHL playoffs your way. Want to watch a single, do or die Game 7, a full week of heavy-hitting back-and-forth series? Then check out Sling's 1, 3, and 7-day passes. Watch the Chase for the Cup on ESPN and TNT, starting as low as $4.99. No long-term contracts or overpaying. Just live hockey at home or when you want it. Sling lets you do that. Visit sling.com to learn more.
I'm here on a job site with Tim, who owns his own electrical contracting business.
3 employees and 2 work trucks.
Tim traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance. We're positively here where he needs us most.
They sure are.
With step-by-step help on all his insurance needs, all for shockingly low rates.
Shockingly low, huh?
Just a little bit of electrician humour. Do you get it?
I got it.
You know, it feels like we have a real connection. All right, I'll stop.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.